Deep Water, the new film from acclaimed director Adrian Lyne.
You'd actually have to love me.
Is it a return to form after a 20-year hiatus from the man himself?
They're still talking about Fatal Attraction now.
Feel free to like and subscribe, and let's find out. Deep Water is the story of a man married to a quote-unquote foxy lady whose marital indiscretions may or may not have led to him eliminating some of her part-time lovers.
Finally, some emotion.
The seemingly progressive husband could very well have engaged in acts of impotent rage, which is not too dissimilar from our friend the Fresh Prince's recent performance at the Oscars. A post-Batman Ben Affleck stars as an older husband to a sassy and free-spirited wife, played by Ana de Armas. The couple, living in suburbia with a young daughter, on paper have a great life, but behind the scenes, Affleck's wife is making big sexies to an array of toy boys. Affleck, an ex-robotic engineer, is in early retirement after designing chips for combat drones which can potentially eliminate people, like what he may or may not have done to the toy boys making big sexies to his wife.
The chip is used to kill people.
The first half of this straight-to-streaming erotic thriller is engaging enough, at least for me, a Lyne fan. However, the second half squanders its own potential and turns into a generic thriller reminiscent of straight-to-TV 90s erotic thrillers, Fundamental Instinct, Improper Proposal, etc. Here's the thing, with a Lyne film, you kind of know what you're gonna get. A BPD type chick gaslighting and triangulating some dude with traits of codependency and narcissism, and probably a plotline where someone is gonna get killed as a result of all this shagging and infidelity. For me, that's a winning formula for the most part, but Deep Water feels drastically under-optimized. Affleck has a decent performance, his wife is better than I thought she'd be, but when a picture feels rushed and not fully developed, that always shows. Adrian Lyne is a director from the age of cinema, not streaming services. This film was initially intended for movie theaters, but when you see the finished product, it's no wonder it ended up going straight to Hulu and Amazon Prime. Casual moviegoers, I fear, won't enjoy this, but for fans of Lyne and the genre of erotic thrillers, there's still something of value in this picture. The Affleck character in this film feels like the flip side of the Mickey Rourke character in 9.5 Weeks, and the same side of the coin as the Richard Gere character in Unfaithful, both earlier Lyne films. Just as the Jeremy Irons character in Lolita is the same side of the coin as the Robert Redford character in Indecent Proposal.
The shock of her death froze something in me.
That was 30 years ago, and I don't think that there's a day that goes by that I don't think about her.
Their actions in adulthood are dictated by their experiences that took place in their youth, leaving them stunted in the past. Now let's look into the legacy of the man Adrian Lyne himself. Adrian Lyne, before anything else, is a native of North London's Highgate, East Finchley, Hampstead Garden suburb and Muswell Hill. That is the nexus of neighbourhoods right there. Now is a time, if you're from North London, to demonstrate some pride. So for me, he always felt like someone with Highgate, East Finchley sensibilities in terms of the allegorical themes in his films. Essentially someone who grew up with a middle-class, optimistic, fantastical perception of the world, and more specifically women and romance, then went through life drawn to quote-unquote foxy women. More than likely got burnt by a foxy woman.
I want to meet the you up.
Who was some typical borderline type.
Don't go, don't go! I'll call your wife! Please don't go, I didn't mean it, please, I'm sorry. I'll tell your wife.
Then the experience was so profound, left him forever influenced with his Highgate middle-class impressionable self.
You know what I'm saying? I love that shit.
And I'm not trying to be demeaning here. His creativity comes from his North London sensibilities and sentimentalities. His career took off with Flashdance. Oh, look at this jazzy, free-spirited young woman.
As a matter of fact, I f***ed his brains out.
She does not just conform to her external circumstances. What an incredible specimen. I want to marry her like yesterday. She's a maniac, maniac. She's a maniac, maniac. What a feeling. What a feeling. Sassy woman. Then he does 9.5 Weeks, and it's like, okay, these fascinating personalities are jazzy and free-spirited, but good heavens are their relationships dysfunctional. Delicious and erotic, yes, but conducive to long-term stable relationships? Not so much. By the time Fatal Attraction comes around, all of a sudden, the main point are the dangers of all this impulsive passion.
Is this what you want to talk about, our imaginary love affair?
I'm pregnant. I'll tell your wife.
You could end up with some bonkers BPD chick who can't accept objective reality thrust into some psychosis. Then by the time of Indecent Proposal, the formation of a broken man who allows his wife to shag Robert Redford for a meal, recovers and wins her back, but the scars are there. Lolita and Unfaithful, by this point, it's just stunted and emasculated men trying to hold on to a broken dream.
I want to meet the you up.
I liked the Ben Affleck character in terms of Lynne further developing the themes from Unfaithful. A man keeping his unfaithful wife despite his impotent rage, in the name of not wanting to break up the family unit.
You're gonna divorce me?
We have a child. We have a family.
It's like somebody we know.
I got into a different kind of entanglement.
But you know, the hidden issue is codependency and suppressed megalomania.
Just you and me. Why is that awkward? I'm just f***ing with you.
It's like, dude, are you cool with being in an open relationship or not? He's buffer than the dude she's shagging. I interpret this to mean making money and getting in shape got him chicks in his 30s, but he was never that guy growing up. So still had the naivety to try and wifey up a sassy BPD chick. That's why I draw parallels with the Rourke character in 9.5 Weeks. The Rourke character isn't really that guy, the alpha master. He feels he has to play all these dumb games to keep Passenger interested in him. Dude starts to make money, then fakes being that guy. Affleck allowed his ego to dictate his actions, then started to make a million excuses for why his marriage is a bunch of bullcrap. I'm different, that's why I'm married to a self-centered, obnoxious narcissist of a wife.
Are you in love with him?
If you were married to anyone else, you'd be so f***ing bored.
You know he's lying to himself, saying, oh yeah, it's true, I'm so superior to the masses and the hoi polloi. I need to be stimulated by the trauma bond at all times. A plain Jane just isn't on my level. In other words, she cheats on him and he tells himself he should accept it because he's amazing.
Marriages kind of have inherent bargains. You can do this and I get this. There's a kind of symbiotic relationship.
That's some symbiosis, Daddy-O. He pays the bills and she shags whoever she wants.
You're gonna listen to me. I want you to stop seeing him.
Look how assertive you've become. Think you throw me on the floor and you f*** me.
You do what the hell you want with whoever the hell you want, and I'm supposed to get angry and fiery like a good little puppy dog on command. That's not a wife but a demonic kid. He tolerates the open relationship of a marriage because he's so progressive. In other words, the codependent in him can't bear the thought that mummy might get up and run away and leave him. Don't leave me, mummy. The suppressed homicidal megalomaniac killing her side lovers being who he really is at his core. A book-smart cerebral narcissist whose intellectual intelligence is through the roof, but his emotional intelligence is abysmal. In the end, she warms to him because he killed for her. How passionate for the spoilt brat demon, and he gets a bit more momentary conditional validation from mummy. It was a rushed, underdeveloped, poorly executed final product. Thematically interesting, but as a piece of filmic entertainment, very sloppy. Affleck was good enough. Ana de Armas did bring a certain sexuality and sensuality to the role, but lacked a certain je ne sais quoi to make the role iconic. Outside of these two, the movie stunk. In terms of the environment, super forgettable. In Flashdance, it's super memorable in terms of the steel mill town in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In 9.5 Weeks, they're in an Italian restaurant in Greenwich Village, at a time when you know Vincent the Chin Gigante is active in the village. In Deep Water, I had to go on Wikipedia to see it was in Louisiana. You watch it and you're like, they're in America. Other than that, I don't know. The side characters were all glorified avatars to just come along and say, hey, your wife shags other people. She's embarrassing you. Do not tolerate it. And the dudes shagging his wife are just avatars that exist to say, I shag your wife until you eliminate me. You've had enough, you have. Then there's the old bloke whose job is to suspect Affleck of homicide because that's his job, because that's what the film calls for. The scene where he conveniently happens to catch Affleck trying to dispose of the corpse so that Affleck can chase him in his estate car, whilst Affleck, wait for it, on a bicycle catches up with the old dude who subsequently crashes and dies, was the icing on the cake of mediocrity and disappointment. Just a generic straight-to-TV 90s thriller film on Channel 5.
Her desire puts her in the hands of a madman.
The fact it was a straight-to-home media film is sad, in the strength that I still believe in the genre of the erotic thriller as a top-tier cinematic experience. I still like the medium of film depicting damaged women, as well as shows like My Brilliant Friend. the Leela character. It's good to see the genesis of how a woman became who she is in adult life from childhood throughout the series, but I still appreciate the medium of film showing someone in their formed self, and it's interpretive as to how they became that way. Deepwater as a film is very average at best, but thematically, like a lot of Adrian Lyne's work, it's still quite engaging. If this is the last thing that Lyne does now that he's in his 80s, I'd like to say, hey, no sweat. Adrian Lyne, throughout his career, represented North London proudly, and Adrian Lyne is my brother. Deepwater scores a 5.9 as opposed to a 5.1 due to its themes and decent performances from Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. If you've made it this far, thank you very much. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.